Cheerleader Crash. The confession poured out of me like blood from a wound. My fingers trembled over the keys, the click-clack echoing too loudly in the silent dorm room. Coach Harding. Just thinking his name sent a shiver down my spine, a dangerous cocktail of terror and that awful, thrilling need. Elmwood College, 1957, the picture of wholesome Americana. But picture postcards don't show the things that happen in the shadows, the things I craved even as they terrified me. Good girl Peggy Miller, cheerleader, dutiful daughter, and now this. It started innocuously enough. That damp October afternoon after practice, the air clinging to my wool sweater. He called me over near the gym doors, his voice that low, gravelly rumble that seemed to vibrate right through me. Discuss your spirit, he'd said, standing far too close. I could smell the sharp, woodsy bite of his aftershave, feel the heat radiating off him despite the space between us. You've got fire, Peggy, he murmured, his gaze intense, dissecting. But you hold back. Like you're afraid to really let go. His hand brushed my arm, just above the elbow, a fleeting touch, deliberate, proprietary. It left a brand. My body went rigid, then molten, then weak. No, sir, I stammered, staring fixedly at my saddle shoes. Just concentrating. That low chuckle of his rumbled through the air. Concentrate on letting me see that fire next game. Walking back to the dorm, I felt dizzy, replaying that touch. It wasn't like the clumsy gropes of boys my age. It was, claiming. And a treacherous part of me wanted him to claim more. The encounters became charged, dangerous little rituals. He'd find reasons to keep me behind. Help me carry these playbooks to my office, Peggy. The office was small, thick with the scent of old leather and stale cigar smoke. One afternoon, the door clicked shut, and the air turned thick and heavy, electric. He stood by his desk, ostensibly studying a diagram, but his attention was a physical weight pressing down on me. You seem tense, he observed, his voice a low murmur, eyes still on the paper. Big game Saturday, I managed, my voice thin. He turned then, slow and deliberate. Closed the distance. Didn't touch me, just stood there, impossibly close, his gaze tracing the lines of my face, my neck, the swell of my breasts beneath the cheer sweater. I could see the individual threads in his coaching jacket. Tension needs release, Peggy, he breathed, his voice dropping to a whisper that vibrated deep in my core. A smart girl knows how to find it. His finger, calloused and strong, traced the edge of the megaphone I clutched like a lifeline. Then it drifted, feather-light, over the back of my hand holding it. I froze. Breath caught. Muscles locked. His finger slid up, under the cuff of my sweater sleeve, a fraction of an inch, grazing the bare skin of my inner wrist. It was an electric shock, a silent, demanding question. A whimper escaped me, not denial, but surrender. He made a satisfied sound, deep in his throat. That's it, he breathed, leaning in, his warm breath fanning my temple. Just let go. I thought he'd kiss me. My whole being screamed for it, even as terror clamped icy fingers around my heart. But he pulled back, eyes dark and knowing, holding me captive. Dismissed, Miller. I fled, legs trembling, that spot on my wrist burning like a brand. Then came the first note. Slipped under my dorm door on plain paper. No signature. Just 2 words, midnight. East Storage Shed. My heart hammered against my ribs like a frantic bird. Madness. Absolute madness. Yet the thought of not going, of him waiting in the dark, expecting me, it was unbearable. I wore my blue circle skirt and a white blouse, my hands icy. The shed reeked of cut grass and gasoline. Utter darkness until a match flared, illuminating his face, harsh planes, intense eyes, before the softer glow of a lantern took over. You came, he stated. Not a question. He blew out the match. Knew you would. Then he moved. Fast. One arm snaked around my waist, pulling me hard against the solid wall of his chest. The other hand tangled in the hair at my nape, tilting my head back ruthlessly. His mouth crashed down on mine. Not gentle. Demanding. Devouring. I gasped, and his tongue invaded, exploring, claiming every inch. It was drowning. Being consumed alive. His hands were everywhere, sliding down my back, gripping my hips possessively, then roaming up my sides, fingers slipping under the hem of my blouse, finding the bare skin of my waist. I shuddered violently, a moan ripped from my throat despite myself. He groaned against my lips, a raw, primal sound, his hands moving upwards, thumbs brushing deliberately, firmly, against the tender undersides of my breasts through the thin cotton of my bra. Heat pooled low in my belly, a weakness spreading through my limbs. I clung to his shoulders, my only anchor. He broke the kiss, breathing harshly, his eyes blazing like coals in the dim light. His fingers found the top button of my blouse. "Such pretty things shouldn't be hidden," he murmured, voice thick with desire. He undid one button. Then another. The cool air kissed my skin as the fabric parted, revealing the delicate lace edge of my slip. His knuckles grazed the upper swell of my breast. I trembled, a confusing storm of fear and desperate yearning tearing through me. He leaned in again, his lips trailing hot, open-mouthed kisses down the column of my throat, towards the exposed skin. I arched into him involuntarily, a choked sound escaping me, half protest, half begging. Suddenly, a blinding beam of light swept across the grimy shed window. Voices, campus security. Coach Harding froze for a split second, then moved with terrifying speed. He shoved me roughly behind a towering stack of mildewed tarps, snuffed the lantern, plunging us into utter blackness. "Not a sound," he hissed, his voice a whip crack in the dark. The flashlight beam played over the door, the handle rattled violently. My heart stopped. I pressed my face into the rough, dusty canvas, breathing in fear. The voices mumbled outside, footsteps crunched on the gravel path, fading slowly. We stayed frozen in that suffocating darkness for an eternity, the only sound our ragged breathing. When he finally pulled me out, his hands were shaking too, but whether from anger or the same adrenaline coursing through me, I couldn't tell. "Too close," he muttered, his fingers surprisingly deft as he roughly buttoned my blouse back up, his touch lingering possessively on the last button near my breastbone. "Next time." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. The unspoken promise, the thrilling threat, hung heavy in the air between us. He slipped out first, a shadow dissolving into the night. I waited, trembling violently, then crept back to the dorm, feeling irrevocably changed, utterly ruined, and horrifyingly, addictively alive. The near miss didn't deter him, it seemed to fuel him. His commands became bolder. A note instructed me to wait in the empty girls' locker room shower stall after Wednesday practice. The air was thick with steam and the scent of cheap soap. I stood shivering in just my slip, the tile cold under my bare feet. He appeared silently, a looming figure parting the steam. No words. He pushed me back against the slick tiles, his mouth finding mine with bruising intensity. One hand cupped my breast through the damp lace of my slip, his thumbs circling my nipple with agonizing slowness until it hardened into a tight peak. I gasped into his mouth. His other hand slid down, under the hem of my slip, fingers tracing the edge of my panties before slipping beneath the elastic. I cried out, my legs buckling. He held me up effortlessly, his fingers finding my slick heat, stroking, probing, claiming with an intimate knowledge that shattered me. "Quiet," he growled against my ear, his breath hot. "Or someone will hear." The danger, the absolute taboo of the location, sent sparks through my veins. He worked me ruthlessly with his fingers, his thumbs circling that impossibly sensitive nub until the world dissolved into blinding white light and I convulsed against him, biting my lip bloody to stifle the scream clawing its way out. He held me through it, his own breathing harsh, his erection a hard ridge against my hip. He withdrew his hand, wiped it casually on a towel, his gaze dark and satisfied. "Good girl," he murmured, the praise sending a fresh wave of shamed heat through me. He was gone before the trembling stopped. The tension became a living thing, a constant hum beneath my skin. Every practice, every game, every time I saw him stride across the field blowing that damn whistle, my body remembered. It remembered the roughness, the surrender, the terrifying, obliterating pleasure. I saw him watching me during cheers, his gaze a physical caress that made me stumble, my face flaming. Susie Parker, my squad captain, shot me a curious look. "Everything okay, Peggy? You seem jumpy." I forced a smile, my voice too bright. "Just tired, Susie. Big game coming up." The lie tasted like ash. The fear of exposure was a constant companion, yet it only seemed to sharpen the illicit thrill. Then came the Founders' Day picnic. The whole town was there on the quad, families sprawled on blankets, the smell of grilled burgers and popcorn thick in the air. I was pouring lemonade at the cheer booth, forcing smiles, when I felt him before I saw him. He materialized beside me, grabbing a cup. "Thirsty work, watching you," he murmured, his voice pitched low so only I could hear. His knuckles brushed mine as he took the cup. A jolt went through me. He lingered, his presence overwhelming. The old boathouse. 30 minutes. It wasn't a request. Panic warred with the familiar, sickening pull. The boathouse? In broad daylight? With hundreds of people nearby? It was insanity. Yet, 30 minutes later, my heart pounding a frantic tattoo, I slipped away, weaving through the crowd towards the riverbank. The old boathouse was dilapidated, smelling of damp wood and river mud. He was waiting in the shadowed interior, beside a rack of decaying canoes. He didn't speak. He pulled me to him, his kiss fierce, demanding. His hands were under my gingham picnic dress in seconds, pushing aside my underwear. "Against the post," he ordered gruffly, turning me. I obeyed, bracing my hands on the rough wood, the sounds of the distant picnic a surreal counterpoint to the frantic beating of my heart. He pushed my skirt up, his fingers delving into my wetness from behind, preparing me roughly. Then he was there, pressing against me, thick and insistent. He entered me with a single, powerful thrust that stole my breath. It was fast, hard, desperate. The wood scraped my palms. He gripped my hips, pulling me back onto him with each deep, driving stroke. I bit down on my lip, stifling the moans that threatened to escape, the fear of discovery a terrifying aphrodisiac. He pounded into me, his breath hot on my neck, grunting low curses. The pleasure was sharp, intense, amplified by the sheer recklessness. I came quickly, violently, clenching around him, a silent scream tearing through me. He followed moments later, his body rigid against mine, a guttural groan muffled against my shoulder. He stayed buried inside me for a long moment, both of us breathing raggedly, listening for any approaching footsteps. None came. He pulled out, adjusted himself. I smoothed my dress with trembling hands. He cupped my chin, forcing me to look at him. His eyes were dark, satisfied. "My girl," he stated, then slipped out silently, disappearing into the dappled sunlight outside. I leaned against the post, legs shaking, the scent of him and sex clinging to me, feeling utterly exposed and yet impossibly, shamefully alive. The final, irrevocable step came after the championship game. We'd won. The town was delirious, celebrating long into the night. Firecrackers popped, car horns blared. He found me later, hours after the crowds dispersed, still in my maroon and gold uniform skirt and sweater, sitting alone on the deserted bleachers under the harsh glare of the field lights. The echoes of cheers felt like a lifetime ago. He didn't speak. Just extended his hand. I took it without hesitation, my pulse leaping. He led me silently to his car, a sleek, dark sedan. He drove with focused intensity, out past the town limits, up the winding road to Miller's Point, the lonely overlook. He stopped the car, cut the engine. The sudden silence was immense, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the frantic thudding of my own heart. The moon hung high and cold, bathing the rolling fields below in silver light. He turned to me, his face a mask of shadow and moonlight, unreadable. "No more games, Peggy," he said, his voice a low thrum that resonated deep in my bones, a command and a promise. He reached out, slowly, deliberately, and traced the line of my jaw with one finger, a touch that felt like a brand. Then his hand slid down, over the curve of my shoulder, down my arm, coming to rest high on my thigh, just above the knee. His touch burned through the thick wool of my skirt. His fingers began a slow, relentless journey upwards, bunching the pleated fabric as they went, higher and higher, his eyes locked on mine. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't look away from those dark pools reflecting the uncaring moon. His fingers reached the bare skin at the very top of my thigh, just beneath the elastic leg of my white cotton panties. I gasped, a tiny, helpless sound. He made a noise like a low growl, possessive and primal. Then, with a swiftness that stole my breath, his other hand was at the zipper on the side of my skirt. The rasp of metal teeth was deafening in the quiet car. He tugged. The skirt loosened. He pushed it down over my hips, past my thighs, leaving me exposed from the waist down in just my panties and the garter belt holding up my stockings. The cool night air hit my bare skin, making me shiver violently. He didn't stop. His hands, large and warm and impossibly demanding, were suddenly everywhere. On my bare waist, sliding up under my cheer sweater, pushing aside the slip and the bra, finding the soft skin, the curve of my breast. His thumb brushed over my nipple, already tight with anticipation, and I cried out, arching off the cold leather seat. He covered my mouth with his own, swallowing the sound, kissing me with a ferocity that felt like punishment and the only absolution I craved. One hand stayed possessively on my breast, kneading, claiming, pinching the nipple until pleasure pains shot through me, while the other slid down, past the waistband of my panties, lower, lower. I was trembling uncontrollably, suspended between the cold seat and the searing heat of his touch. It was too much. It wasn't enough. I was floating, dissolving, utterly at his mercy. He knew it. He whispered things then, dark, thrilling things against my skin, about how I was his now, his good girl, his beautiful, dirty secret. His hand moved between my legs, fingers finding my slick core, circling, stroking, parting my folds, delving deep. He knew exactly how to touch me, where to press, the rhythm that unraveled me. I shattered. The world blurred into pure sensation, the rough scratch of his coaching jacket against my bare stomach, the iron grip of his hands anchoring me, the relentless, perfect rhythm he set, the overwhelming, terrifying wave of release that crashed over me, wave after wave, leaving me gasping, sobbing his name into the silence, my body convulsing, utterly shattered and remade in that moment. He didn't stop there. He unbuckled his belt with frantic urgency, freeing his hard, thick length. He pushed my panties aside, not bothering to remove them, and positioned himself at my entrance. He looked into my eyes, a final, searing moment of connection, then thrust into me with one deep, powerful stroke that filled me completely, stretching me, claiming me. He was rough, demanding, setting a punishing pace, his hips slamming against mine, the leather seat creaking in protest. His hands gripped my hips, fingers digging in, sure to leave bruises I'd trace later with a mixture of shame and secret pride. He owned me in that back seat, under the cold, indifferent moon. It was raw, primal, an act of possession, not love. And I surrendered completely. I wrapped my legs around him, urging him deeper, meeting his thrusts, lost in the dark, obliterating pleasure of being utterly taken. He groaned, a sound ripped from deep within him, his rhythm becoming erratic, frantic. He drove into me one final, shuddering time, spilling himself deep inside me with a guttural cry that echoed in the confined space. He collapsed against me for a moment, his weight heavy, his breath hot on my neck. We stayed like that, tangled, sweating, the scent of sex and leather thick in the air. Slowly, he pulled away. He helped me dress with a strange, almost detached tenderness, like reassembling a prized, fragile doll. He smoothed my skirt, refastened my sweater buttons, his fingers brushing my skin. He drove me back to the edge of campus in heavy silence. He didn't kiss me goodbye. Just said, "We'll talk soon." And drove away, swallowed by the night. I walked back to the dorm, my body humming with aftershocks, my mind screaming. The thrill, oh, the thrill was like touching the heart of a storm. It was terrifying, elemental, addictive. But then came the creeping cold. The suffocating shame. The stark image of his wedding ring, a cold gold band glinting in the moonlight as his hands moved over my body, inside my body. What have I done? Who is this girl staring back at me with haunted eyes in the dorm mirror? Elmwood feels like a gilded cage now. Every cheer feels like a grotesque parody. Every time I see him on the field, blowing that damn whistle, my body clenches in remembered ecstasy and shame. And the worst part? The most shameful, terrifying truth? A part of me, a deep, hungry, feral part, craves it again. Needs that darkness, that complete surrender, that feeling of being utterly possessed, even if it consumes me. Even if it burns my world to ashes. Gosh, there. I've spilled it all onto the page. My terrible, beautiful secret is out. Now maybe the guilt will loosen its grip. Or maybe confessing it has only made the hunger grow sharper, more desperate. Maybe the secret itself is alive, and now it's starving.